most difficult syllables is the syllables of the voice of God. And God, his voice will be scarce until you come to a point where you don't trivialize it. Spirits will only speak to you when they are sure you will obey. You will come to a point where you say, we will not move unless you go with us. You will not take any decision unless he speaks. I was talking to a sister today, and I was explaining some of these things to her. Lord, what should I do? Should I take this admission? And then you sleep. And then the day is remaining 3 days, and God didn't speak. You say, oh boy, well, let's be going. When God speaks, we will do. After all, Eliezer of Damascus, while he was in the way, the Lord led him. I used to use that scripture to thrill my friends. You know, sometimes we joke and then we play around scripture. I told my friend, well, I'm trusting God to speak on this matter. But while we are waiting for God to speak, while we were in the way, the Lord led us. And then you say, I have the mind of Christ. You will never hear the voice of God. You will stand there until he speaks. And when he knows that you are an honorable man, then he begins to speak to you. Lord, I will not go. You will stay there, even if it looks as if you don't take the next step, things will be wrong. But you will not move. You are making a statement that the voice of God is your absolute authority. At that point, heaven will be jealous. Kenneth Hagin said it's better to be late than to move too quick and mess up the whole thing. I will not move unless God speaks. Many of us have drifted to our senses. We use our senses and we keep navigating until we come to a junction. You know, when you are in a junction, your senses can't work anymore. It's either left or right. You know, the world is a very big puzzle. You can go like this, you are still moving. But when you come to, Lord, who do I marry? That one is hard. You can't use your senses anymore. Then you now see them walking up and down. This prophet come, the kind of prophet. Then you see people line up from here. You see line that people wait for 4 hours to see one prophet, hoping that he will tell them something. And then when they come, the prophet will advise them and say, sow your seed, sow your seed. Don't move until God speaks. It is the secret of great men. Listen to them. The secret of men is hid in their stories. When you hear it, you will discover they never moved until God spoke. You will hear they say, God told me. God told me. God told me. We are a generation of quick people, so they function by assumption. It's not superior argument that win in spiritual matters. In spiritual matters, it's the voice of God that is your security. And if you have not yet developed the art of waiting on God, his voice will be scarce. Most of us here have not heard the voice of God for a long time. From whence we got our admission, the course we are reading, we are graduating now, it's just assumption because we are on a fast lane. Nobody can wait anymore. In the days of old, a man could go to the mountain and wait for 40 days for God to speak. And if God doesn't speak, he won't come down. What's the point coming down? If you come down, you will live by your senses and it will take you nowhere. They waited on God. That's the life of Moses. You see, most times, if I want to explore a doctrine, I just look at the life of somebody. Because their lives are revelatory pathways into mysteries in the spiritual. In Exodus chapter 3 verse 1 to 19, you see where God gave Moses all the details. And even when Moses entered Egypt, he still depended on the voice of God to survive. What if he didn't wait in Horeb to hear God? When he encountered Pharaoh, Pharaoh rejected him. What would he have done? Then he will now come and start assuming, what do I tell Pharaoh in the morning? What do I tell Pharaoh in the evening? They would have cut his head and put on the chaff. But when Pharaoh speaks, he will go back to God. It's not like Moses was daft. He didn't know what to say. There were many answers that came to mind. But when Pharaoh speaks, he goes back to God because he knows his safety. His possibilities were all locked up in the voice of God. Everything about your destiny is locked up in the voice of God. Everything. The contradiction of 10 years can be unraveled by one sentence from God. What to do, where to go, What to do unless God doesn't speak. If he speaks, everything changes. We pursue men too much. That's why our life is a function of many dislocations. The voice of God is scarce in our generation. We know so much doctrine. We know a lot of things about God. But there are few who know God because only few hear him. When God speaks, his reality is communicated. The Bible said in Ezekiel chapter 2 verse 1, he said, as he spake to me, the Spirit entered. The guy did not just know what to do. The capacity to do was also communicated. These are possibilities in the voice of God. When you see a high flyer in the kingdom, it's a man that can access the voice of God. If you see a man who knows the voice of God, is invincible. You can't hurt him. You can't trap him. It's like the wind. The voice of God. The fathers of old knew this. It's the technology in the spirit for safety. It's a technology in the spirit for empowerment. It's a technology in the spirit for survival. If your life is full of contradiction, don't go too far. Just shut down for 3 weeks. Go and wait on God. It will change the story for good. But if you can't wait, you may still run for another 2 years. Life is lived once. Never try it on assumption. I'm a scientist. We do a lot of things. We run a lot of things on experiments. You can only afford an experiment when there is a room for second chance. Your second chance is in heaven. And heaven is a place of reward. You can't afford an experiment with your life. The only safety is in the voice of God. The men of old, they had this understanding. That was why they lived their lives the way they did. There were cases in scriptures where people don't give answers. They wait for weeks until God speaks. Nebuchadnezzar came to the wise men. Daniel said there is a God that reveals secrets. He implored the king to give them time. If you need to take time, take time. Don't act as if you know it all. You are not omniscient. But if you cannot apprehend the voice of God, your life is going somewhere to waste. Because safety in life is a function of the voice of God. The voice of God is the compass of navigation. These are basic things, but most times we are not taught their significance. So we are not patient enough to explore them. If you know that your life will amount to nothing unless you hear God, you will stop everything and hear him. There are many things I've lost waiting on God to speak and he didn't speak. But today I'm happy that I can apprehend the voice of God. Because when God begins to speak, there is a mystery in God that can cause you to overtake many times that were wasted. Elijah waited until God spoke. He prayed for long. But when God spoke, the Bible said the hand of God came upon Elijah. And he outran the chariots of Ahab. It doesn't matter who took off before you. Get the voice of God. It will change your life for better. It will cause you to stop the struggle. We struggle so much because we don't take advantage of our resources that are in the spirit. The last thing I want to share with us is what I call responding to summons. You see, when God teaches you the technology of burdens